Hey there, welcome to week 2 of nonfiction. So, this is my third try recording this video. And if I make a mistake, I'm just going to leave it and you guys can just deal with it because I'm not recording again. All right, so this week we're talking about the techniques of creative nonfiction. We're talking about the Annie Dillard piece from Heaven and Earth and Jest, and we are also talking about the Roxane Gay piece and the Claudia Rankine piece that are both on Moodle. So I hope that you all were inspired by these pieces that show you sort of what you can do as far as scene and image go. Oh, and we're also talking about image. Okay, I'm going to hop over to my PowerPoint. Okay, so even though we haven't talked about most of them specifically, I mean, we're starting with image this week, but you know, the same techniques that apply to fiction apply to nonfiction. This includes image, metaphor, voice, dialogue, point of view, character, setting, scene, conflict, human connection, etc., and etc., right? So, what imaginative writing says about scene, character, and setting is pretty important. You know, I really appreciate Janet Burroway's concise description of the way that you can use these techniques in nonfiction. So on page 230, we start the paragraph in italics that says, just down from the mountains, early August. So not only does that line start in a long shot, a wide shot, a brief summary of the scene, it also immediately brings the setting in to the scene. And the setting is the context and the texture of the scene, right? So that one line does so much. It draws us right there. Don't be afraid to steal these kind of things straight from the text, you know, just down from St. Augustine, you know, early spring. These kind of tricks are great for you as fledgling writers to just take straight from the masters and put right into your own pieces. And the same goes for characters. So creating dialogue in fiction is, while it might be difficult, it is easy in the sense that you don't have to own up to any dialogue that you get wrong, right? Because it's all fictional. But writing dialogue in nonfiction can be a bit tricky because, you know, obviously you don't remember exactly what somebody said. However, there are a few tricks to the trade. I think I mentioned one of these last week. You can remove the quotation marks from the dialogue itself. Removing the dialogue quotes gives the effect that the author is conceding that the dialogue might not be as exactly true to life as, you know, the way that we remember it. The same goes for, or another trick is to ask somebody that you were having the conversation with what they think of the dialogue interpretation. If they think that the dialogue is accurate, or if that's the way they remembered it, and then you guys can come up with something together. A third trick that I do all the time, and I think I've had people think that I'm like a little crazy for doing it, but another thing you can do is you can record people talking and then use the dialogue as they're speaking. It's best to tell people that you're recording, yeah, sure, but you get the more natural dialogue when you don't tell them that you're recording. Now, let's not go on the record and say that I told you to go around and record people talking, but I will admit that I do it pretty often. Okay. Something else to consider with creative nonfiction is interpretation, or you can kind of think of this as like, what is the point? What are you trying to go for with what you're writing? Like, why are you retelling us this scene from your 7th birthday when you got gum in your hair and your mom had to use peanut butter to get it out? Why are we seeing this? The nature essayist that they refer to on page 232, Barry Lopez, I love the way that Burroway discusses how he slips in these little tidbits about life while he's telling a story. He's got this really awesome article that he wrote back in the 80s or the 90s about going to the Staten Island garbage dump and walking around the dump and looking at all the fauna and flora that has, you know, learned to live in the dump. But throughout that, he gives us all this information about the trees that grow there. He tells us all about these fir trees and all about these other trees that only grow in Staten Island. It's really pretty fascinating. So he involves the reader in the human drama, but also teaches us what he wants us to know, right? So I want you to think about that same thing. Why are you telling, what is your point here? And like something that I do when I'm writing a fiction piece is I sit down and I think, if somebody was telling this story at a bar with a stranger, sat down and a stranger said, tell me an interesting story. And like, let's pretend like the characters in my story are real. And I was telling the story of my main character's drama that she goes through in her lifetime. So what would be the next thing that this person says? And so, without telling us, oh, I had to write this for my college class prompt, what's the slant here? So one of my favorite things about creative nonfiction is the ability for you to speak your mind directly. You can tell the reader how you feel or how you want us to feel. Unlike fiction, where you are supposed to not tell the reader what to think, you're supposed to show the reader how to feel. In creative nonfiction, you can go into moments of telling and talking to the reader. However, you don't want to abandon lyrical language, voice, scene, etc. Don't abandon your techniques, but you can interject directly with the text. And this sort of leads me into research, so research in fiction is often kind of boring. You have to do a lot of finding dates and looking at fabrics and, researching football moves. My thesis advisor just published a short move, and it's a football novel, God bless her. Like it's a life narrative, but it's surrounding the concept of the NFL. And like, I don't know, it just seems like she had to do a lot of research in making it believable. However, in nonfiction, you can call your mom and ask her to retell you the story about the gum and the seventh birthday. Or you can watch a kidney operation, like they mentioned in imaginative writing. You can tell me how it feels to watch a kidney operation, what emotions pass among the athletes in the locker room. These are things that are a lot more subjective, and they don't have to be as believable because you can admit to the reader, I don't know this thing, right? I'm talking only from my perspective and not from the perspective of someone who is fully knowledgeable in XYZ or is fully knowledgeable in XYZ. Okay, so now we're going to talk about image. So, image. An image, this is the definition that's in imaginative writing, is an image is a word or series of words that evokes one or more of the five senses. So on page 17 of imaginative writing, you've got this list of examples of thoughts and images thoughts with images and thoughts without images. So these ideas on page 17, you've got in some these abstract generalizations and judgments without images, right? It's best to consider consequences before proceeding. Well, that's pretty boring, and it's while it's true, it doesn't give us much excitement, right? Look before you leap. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. These are both terrible cliches, but cliches are often images that are striking, right, and speak a symbol. Here's another one that I like. A thought without an image. The verses I am writing have no vitality. They are unattractive and stale. An image that contains the same thought. They are not pigs. They are not even fish, though they have a piggy and a fishy air. And that's from Sylvia Plath, where she talks about her own writing. Pretty sad. Okay. So the point is that abstractions, generalizations, judgments are valuable and important tools for literature and for writing. They are the ends, right? These are the ends that you want to get to for your reader, but you have to use your images as your means. So you have to decide what you want your reader to walk away with as far as these abstractions, generalizations, and judgments goes. And how you're going to get there within the scene is up to the images of the scene. So one thing, a line that I really like is on page 18 of imaginative writing, just before that final paragraph break down at the bottom of the page. But the images of written literature, including sound, smell, taste, and feel, remember I'm talking about all five senses, not just images that you can see. But the images of written literature, including sound, smell, taste, feel, strike the eye as little symbols on the page, which must be translated by the brain into the sound that these symbols represent, abstractions, etc., which must then be translated into the sense that our language signifies by that particular sound. So it's complicated. And, the more that you add in there, it's always best to add more images, more details, all the details, and then you can cut them later, right? And give less of the abstractions, generalizations, and judgments. I don't want to be told what to think without being shown why I need to think it. What I mean is, especially with nonfiction, because you can tell us, you just want to make sure you're supporting it with something that is full of imagery. Remember, this is images in general, images that apply in poetry, fiction, and nonfiction. I'm breaking down the smaller craft elements every few weeks. So, unique images make for heartfelt and engaging writing. Avoid worn images and dig for the uniquely ordinary. And then if you look on page 22 and 23, I think you can tell that the two paragraphs that have the detailed images are obviously the more striking and effective paragraphs, right? And it's interesting. In both of those more detailed paragraphs, there aren't very many telling sentences. If you look at the one that has abstractions and judgments, Debbie was a very stubborn and completely independent person and was always doing things her way. It doesn't say anything about stubborn or anything like that, but we get the sense that Debbie is stubborn. So I want you to use images moving forward. This is the reason we started with the craft element of images is I find it to be one of the most important and also one of the most difficult craft element techniques for fledgling writers to master. It's very difficult to remember to put in details and to let the details do the talking and choose which details are going to be the most effective details, right? Like I have this habit of going on and on and on in my writing about like this beautiful sunset or like, a hot person. I'm like talking so much about these pointless images because like I find them fun to write, yet I don't spend any time on like the images that are actually going to compound to mean something in my writing. So pick and choose, but fill your writing with images. Okay, we're going to talk about the reading. We'll start with From Heaven and Earth and Just. You probably noticed, maybe you've noticed now, that each reading used powerful images to open up their prose and explore greater, more worldly meanings, right? So you've got From Heaven and Earth and Jest, and Annie Dillard writes about the frog's death. The spirit vanished from his eyes as if snuffed, and formless as a pricked balloon, and the unrecognizable flap of frog skin settled to the creek bottom. I couldn't catch my breath. This piece explores death. It explores curiosity, nature, childhood, adulthood, the, change that you either change or stay the same in some ways from those. And it uses this image the entire time. It maintains focus on this frog image getting sucked out, and it goes into like these graphic details, right? And she also has obviously done a little bit of research and learned more about what the fangs look like and what the procedure is of this oval bug to suck out the frog's guts, right? And it's pretty graphic, especially for like such a short little lighthearted piece. but then it sort of leaves you feeling somewhat shook. You're kind of like, well, what was the point of that? But then you think back on it and you're like, oh, it's about nature, it's about her experience. But and she doesn't take up too much time with the actual image of it. She just uses it and then moves on. Okay, and then Citizen. If you guys haven't read Citizen, I love this memoir. It is beautiful and sad and great. So um, these three quotes, we've got: when a woman you work with calls you by the name of another woman you work with, it's too much of a cliche to not laugh out loud. When you arrive, he blurts out, I didn't know you were black. And the real estate woman spends much of the walkthrough telling your friend how comfortable she feels around you. These aren't like specific striking images, but these aren't abstractions either, right? These are actual moments in time where she uses these images within the scenes to explain, especially compounding them together, what it is that she's trying to explore, which is race, racism, her experience as a woman, as a professional, and the book explores so much more, and does so using these very powerful images. And she even has, as you saw, the actual physical image of that quote at the end of the chapter. Which is a Zora Neale Hurston quote. Let's see, anything else about Citizen? Well, and also, if you think about the white space on the page, there's a large amount of white space, which is another image in itself, right? So you can think about these formatting. I mean, right now we have specific formatting, but for your portfolio, if you felt so inclined, you could experiment with formatting, even if you want to do it with these rough drafts. I don't care, but that's another image. Okay, and then this Roxane Gay piece, Adventures with the UPS Man. She uses these images of the UPS man in his brown polyester shorts, speeding up the hill, music blaring, often classic rock, and leaving the packages 5 feet from the door. She's using these images to humorously talk about like her relationship with the UPS man, but also love, lust, life as a writer, life in the 21st century. And again, with the formatting, she uses these different style of formatting that is an image of itself, right? So this is all to say, I want your scenes and your pieces of nonfiction to be filled with images, to be filled with specific details and scenes of your life or whatever your personal essay that you're going to be crafting this week. The discussion post will be up as soon as I'm done here, and also still a couple of you have not narrowed down your time on Friday the 26th, so go do that. All right. Well, this has been Nonfiction Week 2. If you have any questions, I feel like only 18 minutes, but oh well. I kind of rushed, maybe. I don't know. If you feel like I rushed, you can reach out to me. We can have office hours meeting. I got a couple of you coming tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that. All right. Well, have a great night. Bye-bye.